disrespectful student that she's ever met because she didn't understand what I was trying to get across.
Oh, well, that's not good. Why am I hearing things? Oh, okay. Something's going on. I had a video playing, I think. Okay. All right. Last thing we did, guys, was talk kind of about the politics of the New Deal and just some of the issues where Roosevelt was being attacked from both the left and the right. Okay. And so if you saw that video yesterday, you got to see Huey Long in person and hear him talk. And then I played a little video of Justin Wilson, who's a famous Cajun chef. Any guys eat Cajun food? Like gumbo? Yeah, gumbo. I make gumbo, you know, especially during the wintertime. Great kind of comfort food like chili, you know. And crawfish. Any of you guys ever been to a crawfish boil? Yeah. Did you eat it?
Yeah, you just like suck it out.
Yeah, suck the head out. Yeah.
No, don't. That's gross.
No, that's where the juices are.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Okay. It's really kind of a neat cultural and really it's kind of a delicacy. They're like little lobsters too. Okay. Yeah, it's instead of doing barbecues in Louisiana, they do crawfish boils. And with my background, my wife's background in Louisiana, we've flown up. You can fly it up and you get them live. So you fly up to 100 pounds. We get a big pot, you know, get all the spices in there, corn, potatoes, onions, mushrooms, all that stuff, and soak in that spicy. If you ever get invited to a crawfish boil, go. Okay, it's a blast. Yeah.
How much does 100 pounds feed?
100 pounds of feed, probably like 40 people. You know, the two times we've done it, we invited like 50 people and you know, keg of beer. And the second time we did it, it was too cold. We try and do it in the fall, and you just try and predict the weather. You just don't know whether it's going to be a good day or not. So our numbers were pretty down the second time. But Coach Rock came. You know, I invited some of the faculty and stuff here. But yeah, it's a good time. Okay, so Louisiana culture is just something I want to spend a little time on. Okay. All right. So moving forward. Not everything that we've talked about happened in the first 100 days, okay? But they call this the second 100 days. So we kind of get into 1935 and 36. And as you see, this is aimed more at reforming the system than recovery. So recovery is, trying to get people jobs and, help people with their mortgages, fix the banks. That's your reform, okay? Your recovery is going to be a little different flavor to it. So looking at income for the elderly, laid off workers, which they're already doing some of that. Soak the rich taxes, and how are you going to pay for that, right? You're going to have to tax more. And we're already doing deficit spending, which, if you did the homework, you kind of get an understanding of that, Keynesian economics and all that, okay? And then try and help labor unions here a little bit. This is one of the most famous photographs of Roosevelt here. Obviously, he's smoking a cigarette, but he's got this long filter on it. He's kind of a fun, jovial guy. And then another political cartoon. This is from 1937 in New York Rochester Times. FDR's $5 billion 6-year works plan. Okay, streets, highways, irrigation, drainage, flood control, buildings, equipment, soil conservation, slum clearance, recreational areas, sewage, forestry, game protection, pest control, grade crossings, navigation aid, and assorted projects. Okay, you can see Congress over here sweating as Roosevelt's throwing all this stuff out. Okay, so where do we go from here? Where do you think we're going with elderly and laid off workers? What are we going to talk about on the next slide?
Medicare. Oh,
yeah, Social Security. Okay, so that's where this slide comes in. Okay. Now, because we we had government last semester, right? So I talked a lot about Social Security when we went over that. So some of this will be a review, okay? And as we look at Social Security, guys, workers pay in a small amount each month, okay? Today, that's 6.2%, right? And then this money was supposed to go into a Social Security fund. And as I told you guys in the fall, that Social Security fund was raided by government. They stole that money and used it on other things. So there's no real Social Security fund today. So money goes directly from my paycheck or your paycheck to grandma today, okay? The employer match is called the payroll tax. And that goes to fund other parts of Social Security. So key for this, guys, you're gonna have to write about this on the test, okay? There's 3 parts of Social Security, okay? Not just the retired workers receiving a monthly payment. That is the first part, the main part of Social Security. But there are 3 parts to this, okay? So the payroll tax is gonna go to help with one of the 3. And what you put in goes towards your monthly payment, okay? But the other one here that a lot of people don't really know about is public assistance. So this is funded out of general revenue. It's not funded out of that 6.2%. This money comes from state and local general revenue, and this goes to the aged, the blind, dependent children, also those that, when you have blind up here, really those that are on disability, okay? People that cannot help themselves. And then I don't know if you have any friends. I don't know everybody's situation in here at home, but if you were to have lost a parent before the age of 18, the surviving parents and the child would be eligible for Social Security. I have a copy, but.
Do you pass them out? Do you want that one?
Well, I don't like hand them out like for them to read.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's Lincoln. I don't teach Lincoln.
Okay.
Thank you. But you can give it to Ferris. Yeah. Yeah, so dependent children. And usually that helps the surviving parents, replace income that may have been lost from the deceased parent. Okay. And I think most people think that this is a really good program. I haven't seen our latest numbers on Americans on disability, but it's around 85, what was it? 8.5 million last I read. 8.5 million Americans on full disability. So that could be somebody that, has an accident, they hurt their back really bad, and they can no longer work, they go on disability. Okay. There's a myriad of different reasons you could get disability. Okay. What's a little worrisome to some people is that start to qualify, some mental health issues as disability. Like say you had depression, would you qualify for disability? I don't know. There's a move in that direction, I can tell you that. Okay. And with about, 10% of the population that you could consider probably clinically depressed, that would add a whole bunch of new people if they didn't work to the disability rolls. Okay. So that we kind of keep an eye on. But generally, I think most people feel like this is a good part of Social Security. The third part of Social Security is unemployment insurance. Okay, so this is where the payroll tax comes in that the employers match. Okay, so like right now during the pandemic, if you lose your job because your business shut down that you worked for or something like that, you could apply for unemployment insurance. Okay, so laid off workers' income while they search for a new job. Now, generally, guys, unemployment insurance is for 26 weeks, which is 6 months, half a year. Okay. There have been times during economic downturns where government, Congress will extend unemployment checks to 99 weeks. We've seen this in 2009, we saw Obama do this, extend unemployment to 99 weeks. Now, you could debate that. If the economy is really bad and people are having a hard time finding jobs, maybe that's the right thing to do, okay? But does it discourage people from going out and finding a job if they know they can stay on unemployment for 99 weeks? You're shaking your head. I don't know about other people, but yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, I think there's, that's debatable, right? So, just telling you that that's happened before, okay? So this comes from the payroll tax. So that's generally you pay in, lawyers pay in, and these are the benefits of Social Security, okay? Now this was created in 1935, and the retirement age was set at 65. And I think I told you this in the fall. What was life expectancy in 1935? 66. Yeah. So the average American would be on Social Security for 1 year when this program started. Now, as far as life expectancy goes, I heard this on the radio yesterday morning. Life expectancy in this country rose through every decade of the 20th century, with the exception for a couple of years during World War II. Okay, life expectancy did not rise. We made it as a country up to, I believe, 78.8 as a country, as a life expectancy. This year, it dropped a full year to 77.8. Okay, because of COVID. Okay, we hit the 500,000 mark yesterday. As far as now, obviously, you guys know some of those numbers are probably inflated and so forth, but yeah, I mean, 500,000 people. Now, a lot of those people would have died anyway this year, but a lot of them wouldn't have. You know what I mean? So that has affected the overall life expectancy in the United States. So really kind of the first time in a while that we've seen life expectancy decrease, okay? Hopefully things will improve. I signed up for the vaccination March 6th, get my first shot, okay? They opened it up to all the teachers last night. So there were still a lot of spots open when I signed up at 10 o'clock last night. So I don't know. Some people won't get it. Are you guys going to get it? She signed up? Okay. Yeah, I mean, some people, and I don't begrudge people that don't want to do it, but we talked about how this vaccine works, right? About how they don't give you the virus with this vaccine. Okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better about it. So I'm going to do it. Okay, and my wife and I, we like to travel, so if it makes traveling a little bit easier and that sort of thing, I'm going to do it. Yeah.
And just one thing with the vaccine, like the biggest concern is like people, they're like, we came out with this in a year, how can we be sure that it's safe?
Right.
The RNA vaccine has actually been being worked on since like the early 1900s, and it actually was nearing its completion right when COVID hit.
Okay.
So it's actually been in development for almost 100 years.
Wow.
But we were just really lucky with the timing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think the science is incredible. You know what I mean? It's really neat. And hopefully they can come up with other uses for that. You know what I mean? For messenger RNA and to help people, you know, that'd be neat. Okay. So, yeah, this is just some people signing up. Some of the, propaganda to sell Social Security to the American people. Okay. Talking about more security to the American family. When uninsured worker dies, leaving independent children and a widow, both mother and children receive monthly benefits. Widow of qualified worker receive monthly benefits at the age of 65. Social Security Act, as amended, offers greater old age insurance protection to people now nearing retirement age. Okay. All right. Don't have to spend as much time on that because you already know a little bit about it. This is the signing ceremony. Francis Perkins right there. This is some more, information that's sent out. And then this is a political cartoon. It's more recent. They say Social Security is supposed to not be soluble 2037. We won't have enough money to fully fund it based on the current model. And then you got Social Security here in the in the grave and Medicare over here, trying to revive it. All right, so what else? President Roosevelt, Congress are going to try and, obviously higher taxes, but also they're going to go after some of the large gas and electric companies, these large, not monopolies, but conglomerates, and try and break some of these up. The federal government is going to, for the first time, and this is one of the questions I asked you on the homework, was about the Interstate Commerce Clause. The Interstate Commerce Clause in the Constitution has always been in the Constitution. It's just up until this point, it was rarely used by the national government. Okay, so this is going to give the federal government to regulate companies that are interstate. Okay, so when we talk about regulations, guys, have you heard of OSHA? Okay, so this is like a big regulatory agency. It's occupational safety,
And
health
administration.
Okay, yeah. So, like, if you're working, you're a roofer. Okay, you roof, all right, for a living. There are regulations that you have to abide by when you're on the roof. Okay, these standards are put in not by state governments, but by the federal government. Okay, how can they regulate roofers in Kansas? Well, guys, when you build a house in Kansas, okay, do we get all the lumber from Kansas? No. So a lot of it comes from Canada, actually. A lot of our lumber that we use to build. Okay, so that's not only interstate, it's international trade. Okay, what about the nails that you use? Are those made in Kansas? The bolts and screws? No. Okay, the roofing materials, not made in Kansas either. Okay, so anytime your business uses materials that are interstate under this clause, the federal government can regulate your industry. Okay, it just wasn't used very often prior to the New Deal. Okay, so today this is a major headache for businesses because the federal government tends to do a one-size-fits-all regulation for everybody in the country. And they use this power in the Constitution to do it. Okay, so this is really, we see an expansion of federal power over states, over businesses throughout the country. Okay, it opens the door for that. All right, this is gonna, it's a serious means of frustration for people in this country today. Okay, labor unions. Okay, so they had Section 7A of the NRA that guaranteed the right of workers to form unions. All right, you see this today. This is kind of a headache for Jeff Bezos. Because you guys know, I mean, how many of you guys use Amazon to order stuff from at your house? Okay, so, I mean, this business has just become crazy big in a short period of time, Amazon. And you have all these people that work in warehouses. Okay, so it's amazing that you could order something online today and it show up on your doorstep tomorrow. It's pretty amazing. Okay, but those people that are working in the warehouses aren't making much money, and it's a tough job. It's hard work, and they're starting to form unions. Okay, and Jeff Bezos doesn't want that because unions can hold that, over that. They can go on strike and say, look, if we don't make more money or have better working conditions, more breaks during the day, that sort of thing, we're going to go on strike. Okay, so the National Labor Relations Act created the National Labor Relations Board. This is still around today. Okay, and this guarantees the rights of workers to join unions. Okay, but also tries to stop unfair practices against unions by business. All right, and one of the things we have to learn about in this country is that you have some states that are called union shops, and you have some states that are called right to work states. Okay, so if you work for Boeing, all right, let's say you work for Boeing, where's their headquarters? National headquarters of Boeing. Seattle. Okay? You're in Washington State, up in the great Northwest. Okay? Seattle, or excuse me, Washington State is a union shop. Okay, so let's say you build planes for Boeing in Seattle, okay, and you're a sheet metal worker. Sheet metal workers have a union with Boeing, okay? If you work in Seattle, which is a union shop, you must join the union. You don't have a choice, okay? If you live in Kansas and you build planes for Boeing, which they don't do anymore, but they did a few years ago, okay? You live in a right to work state, which means you don't have to join the union. Now, you may receive the benefits of the union, okay, because there's a contract with the union, but you don't have to join. Okay, in Kansas, if you're a teacher in the public schools, okay, do we have unions in our public schools here? Yeah. USD 259 negotiates the contracts with teachers through the union. Okay, the National Education Association. Okay. My buddy Tom, that teaches over at Northwest, is not a member of the union. He does not pay union dues. He doesn't have to. He lives in a right to work state. But he benefits from the union contract. Okay? But if you live in a union shop, now, guys, teachers are public employees, yes? So you have private sector unions and you have public sector unions. Private sector unions being United Auto Workers, Service Employees Union International, Boeing Sheet Metal Workers. These are Boeing engineers. These are private. Public sector unions, teachers, firefighters, people that work for Parks and Recreation, people that work for the state, people that work for the federal government. Those are public sector unions. Okay? There used to be a law that said if you lived in California, which is a union shop, and you worked for the government, you were a public school teacher in California, you must join the union. Supreme Court case in 2017 called Janus, 2017 said you do not have to join unions if you are in a public union. If you work for the government, you don't have to. Okay, that just changed in 2017, which was a good decision by the Supreme Court. Because, guys, unions, what do they do with their money? When you pay union dues, what do they do with that? What does the National Education Association of Kansas, the teachers union, do with the money they take in every month from the teachers?
Pay their employees and work.
If they're on strike, yeah, they pay the union bosses, for sure. The union bosses get rich, okay? And they have money set aside for teachers if they go on strike, which doesn't happen very often. So what do they do with that money? they spend it on campaigns to get people elected to office. And when those people get elected to office, they work for the government, right? These politicians get paid by the government. And then the politicians write the laws. Okay? So what you have is the teachers union electing, you can probably figure out which party, where they give their money to which party, right? Electing this group of politicians so that this group of politicians, when they get in power, give them a pay raise. Now, where do the teachers get their money? Their pay. From the taxpayers. So public sector unions, when they bargain for better wages, they're bargaining against the taxpayer. Follow me on this? Okay. We didn't have public sector unions, government employees that were unionized until 1967. Roosevelt, who, if you haven't figured out yet, is a liberal, was opposed to public sector unions. It's a conflict of interest to have government employees bargaining against the taxpayer, in his view. Okay, so it wasn't until 67 that we got it. All right, they've lost some of their power because of that Supreme Court decision in 2017. Okay, but this is how the NLRB works. It's a board of 3 people. Okay, this happened about 10 years ago. You know, Boeing has left Wichita, right? Why did Boeing leave Wichita? No. Okay, so the sheet metal workers that work for Boeing, the engineers that work for Boeing, they had unions and people were making really good money. Okay, they were making a lot of money. And Boeing wasn't making a lot of money. Boeing wanted to open a new plant in South Carolina. Okay, cost of living where they were going to build that plant is low, which meant they could renegotiate a new contract with the union down there to pay these employees less money. Okay, so when Boeing announced they were going to build a plant in South Carolina, the National Labor Relations Board got a complaint from the employees in Seattle that were unionized. And that's a union shop. So everybody that works in Seattle is part of the union. They complained to the NLRB that Boeing was using unfair practices against the unions by building a plant in a right-to-work state. And the NLRB voted 2-1 that that was the case. That was true. Boeing was mistreating the union. In Seattle, the cost of living is very high. So they're paying their people that are sheet metal workers $45, $48 an hour. You could pay somebody in South Carolina $22 an hour to do the same job. Would Boeing make more money? Oh, yeah. So we still have Spirit here, right? So what they did is Boeing did an offshoot of their business, created a subsidiary called Spirit. And when they did that, they renegotiated the contract with all these engineers, because Spirit has a lot of engineering part of building planes. So they renegotiated the contract because it was a new company and paid those people less money. Okay, because Boeing wasn't making enough money in their view. Okay, and that's why Spirit happened, and that's kind of why Boeing went away in Wichita, because they were having trouble renegotiating the contract with the union. Okay, and by building that plant, eventually, after about 8 years, because this one Republican appointed member of the NLRB, he resigned in protest because he said this is not unfair business. They're not attacking the union in Seattle. Boeing's just trying to compete with Airbus. okay, trying to make planes and sell them around the world, okay? So, now, the 737 MAX, the problems with that occurred actually after Boeing left Wichita, okay? Now, building the 737 MAX might have been part of their plan to move operations to South Carolina. So the NLRB is still around today. You know, in this debate over unions and how much power they have and union shops and right to work states, if you look at a map of right to work states and union shops, it kind of looks like the Electoral College map. The blue states tend to be union shops. The red states tend to be right to work states. Now, Michigan, where General Motors, Chrysler, all that auto manufacturing, guys, after that, they took a massive hit in the 90s and early 2000s in Detroit. Detroit went bankrupt. Michigan went from a union shop to a right to work state, as did Wisconsin. Okay, they got rid of the union shop label because it was killing their industry. Guys, the average auto worker on the line, working the line at General Motors, was making $48 an hour on average. Now, do you have to have a college degree to work on the line at General Motors? You do not. Okay, $48 an hour is a lot of money. Okay, and it was making it very difficult for General Motors and Ford and others to compete with other auto manufacturers from overseas. And what NAFTA did, the North American Free Trade Agreement that Bill Clinton put in place in the early 90s, is a lot of those jobs from Detroit left and went to Mexico. They started building plants in Mexico because they had much lower labor costs. So if you could pay somebody $10 an hour in Mexico versus $48 an hour in Detroit, and our government, through our trade policy, allowed that to happen. So American jobs were just going. They were just leaving the country. Okay? That's a lot of good paying blue collar jobs going bye-bye. Okay? So I think, you know, policy-wise, you can support the worker. The union, you can support that. But at some point, our businesses, our corporations have to make money, or they're going overseas. Okay? And, you know, whether you like Trump or not, I bless his heart. I felt like he was trying to keep more American businesses here and set up an environment that American companies would choose to stay here, not be forced to stay here, but choose to stay here by lowering the corporate income tax, that sort of thing, to make us more competitive internationally. Boeing's chief competitor is Airbus of France, okay? In France, they have universal health care. So the country pays for all the Airbus employees' health care. Boeing doesn't have that. Boeing has to pay that health care. They have to pay the payroll tax for all their employees as well. You understand? So it's tough for American companies to compete with foreign competition when we have such high labor costs in this country. It's just hard. Ask anybody that owns their own business about how expensive labor costs are in this country. Okay? So if you own a business and you can do it in China, that's what people will do. Or Mexico or anywhere else. Okay? So little cartoon here. This is kind of humorous. If you want more money, upgrade your skills. This guy says, well, I'm already taking a computer class, but I could add another course. This guy's, here's one that should help. Introduction to Union Organizing. Take that class. Okay? You'll make more money. Make sense? Just trying to lighten the mood a little bit, okay? All right. All right, next thing. Trouble with the Supreme Court. Talked about this yesterday. The NRA was struck down. did you guys catch the switching time saves 9? Yeah, you got to check that out in the video from yesterday. It's on the test, okay? Switching time saves 9. That's where the two justices that were going to be forced to retire switch their vote on the minimum wage, okay? So the manufacturing processing tax that was used to take money to pay farmers not to plant, okay? To get around this, Roosevelt and Congress passed the Soil Conservation and Adjustment Act. And so they're restricting production in the name of conservation, conserving the soil, and then they encouraged and paid farmers to plant certain crops that would help conserve the soil. Are you guys familiar with any of these types of crops? We do this in Kansas. We rotate our crops, grow different things. What's a really good crop to grow that helps replenish the nutrients and minerals in the soil? You said it. Soybeans. Okay, that's a big one. Okay, anything that's grown in the ground is good because the root system's in there. It helps replenish some of the soil. So I don't know if you guys noticed recently, we've seen, I've been driving around Kansas, seeing more cotton. You guys notice that? Seeing cotton being grown in Kansas. Okay, and I was like, I thought that was a southern crop. Okay, but we're doing it in Kansas now too. When you farm wheat over and over again, it depletes the soil. Okay, so we got smart about this. You know what I mean? Farming has come a long way from the Dust Bowl. Okay, so you got to manage that. We have wonderful soil in this state, and so this is kind of a smart idea. Okay. And soybeans, we use those soybeans for a lot of different things. I mean, you have soybean oil. Have any of you guys had a hamburger from the cafeteria here recently in the last 4 years? Does that look like beef to you? I asked Ely a couple years ago. I said, so what percentage of this is beef? He said, oh, it's all beef. Like, come on, man. I make hamburgers. I grill burgers. They don't look like that, do they? They don't look like the ones we have. Of course, there's got to be soybeans in it, okay? Which is not, it's good for you. It's not bad for you. You know what I mean? There's some nice health elements to that. Okay. Supreme Court's going to limit the powers of the SEC, strike down the minimum wage. That's where we get the switch in time saves 9. FDR, in order to get around this is something the government still does today, is the Government Contracts Act. Okay, so Boeing, I know I keep talking about them, they build Air Force One, right? The president's plane. Okay, so since Boeing has a contract with the federal government can mandate that they pay their workers a certain amount and have a maximum work week. Okay, if you want this big government contract for billions of dollars, you will pay your employees a minimum this month. Okay, so that's one way to get around it. Okay, and the unions and the NLRB and these other things, we will see working conditions improve in this country. Safety and other things will improve. And then this is a minimum wage from October of 38. It started at 25 cents an hour. Okay, and this went through September of 97, 5.15. And then, of course, we talked about $15 minimum wage. If this were to somehow pass, and guys, it is part of this $1.9 trillion American Rescue Act. I think that's what they're calling it. There's about $500 billion in this $1.9 trillion that has nothing to do with COVID. Okay, so it's going to get some resistance in Congress. But the $15 minimum wage, the way they're writing this, would be implemented over time and reach $15 in 2035. Okay, so like the current 735, 25 was implemented over at least a decade. So it went from 5.15 to 7.25 over a period of time. There were increments. Okay, so that's what they would be doing with the $15. Okay, now states like California, they already have a minimum wage above 7.25. So if you live in a state, they can go higher than the federal. Okay, Kansas doesn't have that. Okay, but the cost of living in Kansas is pretty good. It's low here, especially this part of the state. Okay, and I asked the other half, one of the other half classes, how many of you guys have jobs? Did we do that in here? I asked you guys how much you were making. Okay, yeah, all right. So we did, and very few of you work for minimum wage. Okay. All right. As far as unconstitutional, these problems with that Roosevelt is having. Oh, another political cartoon here. Okay. You got Social Security, child labor laws, disability acts. You got all these New Deal laws and programs, and you got the Supreme Court with like an oxen and buggy here. Okay, and this is FDR saying you've held up things long enough, angry at the Supreme Court. Okay. So if you look at the number of laws that are declared unconstitutional through American history, okay, the dark blue here are state and local laws. The federal laws are in the light blue down here. Okay, so this is the time period we're talking about between 1930 and 39. So you do see, you know, a pretty good number of laws declared unconstitutional here. Historically, it's high. Okay, it drops during the war to almost nothing. Okay, remember we talked about a crisis. You see power to the executive. I mean, very few laws deemed unconstitutional because of the crisis. Okay, and then you can see more coming in here. As far as state laws and local laws, see all these? These are Jim Crow laws during the 1960s. You know, laws of segregation. You can see a bunch being declared unconstitutional from different states around the Union. Okay, so and that's obviously a positive thing to see. You know, Jim Crow laws being declared unconstitutional. Okay, so that's just kind of an interesting chart. Okay, 35, right? Okay, let's go a little more. All right, so 1936, Roosevelt's running for re-election. He's completed one term. Okay, now FDR and many others feel that the New Deal has been a success. Are we out of the Depression? No. Okay, but industrial production was up to 20 and 25 levels. Farm income obviously was up. Weekly wages were up. Unemployment dropped from 12 million to 7 million. All those jobs that they did through the WPA and the PWA and the CCC, the TVA, and so forth. Okay. The Depression wasn't over, but FDR was very popular. The Republicans really have no chance of winning in 36. They just passed Social Security. People like it. So the Republicans are going to put up the governor of Kansas. Alf Landon. Alfred E. Landon. Okay. Alfred M. Landon. Okay. Any of you guys going to K-State? Okay. Well, I thought we had 35. Anyhow, at K-State every year they do what's called the Landon Lecture Series, named after the former governor. I'll pick up on that tomorrow. Okay? You guys will learn about it.